Welcome back, everyone. Exciting news today as Chrono Odyssey has posted on Twitter their official stance regarding pay to win for their upcoming MMO. They've stated that it is going to have no pay to win whatsoever, guaranteed. Now, for many, this isn't an actual guarantee, as we've heard this before from companies in the East, so it's still going to be a bit of a wait and see for many, I would assume. However, we do have a little more information on that, as Kanon actually did have an interview with one of the lead devs from Chrono Odyssey asking about the monetization. He has a YouTube video of it. We'll put a link to that full video in the description below, but we do want to go over the points in it where they talk about the monetization specifically a little bit and what some things are said and how there still might be some flags that are raised from what is answered.
Is Chrono Odyssey going to be pay to win?
Outright asked.
걱정하지 않으셔도 됩니다. 저희 크로노 오디세이는 페이 투 윈이 절대 없습니다.
Absolutely
공정한
none.
환경을 유지하기 위해서 가장 중요한 가치로 삼고 있습니다. 현재는 코스튬에 관련된 외형만 변경하는 어떤
Focused on
상품으로서
costumes and cosmetics. Great.
DM은 설계되어 있고요. 유저가 신뢰할 수 있는 구조를 만드는 것이 저희들의 가장 중요한 우선순위입니다.
What exactly is the monetization going to be then for Chrono Odyssey? You mentioned just selling cosmetics, or is there anything more to that?
비즈니스 모델은 크로노의 비즈니스 모델은 장비의 외형 변경을 하기 위한 코스튬 그리고
Mount cosmetics, costumes, they're talking about again.
일부 배틀 패스.
Oh, okay, so that's going to be something that raises questions for people right there. That's going to be a flag for a lot of people. Immediately, they stated, and a limited range of content offered through a battle pass system. That is going to raise flags in people's minds because we don't necessarily know what this means yet. This could be a little bit of a, lost in translation type of deal, but those two things being phrased together is going to raise concern in some people's minds, naturally, saying that there's going to be a limited range of content offered through a battle pass. So first off, hearing a battle pass is going to be a red flag to a lot of people because they're like, okay, wait, what's going to be in the battle pass? Or is it just cosmetics? Is it progressional goods? Is it consumables? Anything that can be offered that might have any sort of influence on gameplay. Does it feel mandatory? Does it offer enhancing materials that might normally be restricted from farming? That type of deal. And how much is it going to be? Is there going to be a way to earn it in game? I know a lot of people didn't like the battle pass in TNL, but many tolerated it because they could pay for it through in-game means from selling equipment on the auction house, which was bought, with money. Lucent. And so there's going to be things about the battle pass alone being that it's one more additional paid for thing, and it's just really going to come down to what is on that battle pass. Now, limited range of content, having any gameplay content, what this means specifically, it may be just cosmetics that are exclusively locked behind a battle pass in terms of what they're saying for content, in which case then that's more acceptable. But like if there was any actual content locked behind the battle pass, that's going to be a no-no right away for people just because you are being excluded from something that you have to pay for. I feel like when they say content, it is more specifically related to cosmetics in terms of stuff that is offered that can only be acquired by having the battle pass. And, that's a little bit different. So definitely something to keep an eye on, have feedback about. We're going to have to see what it looks like when it does come out.
에 대한 것들만 고려하고 있습니다.
You say no pay to win.
They're taking it into consideration. It may not be a full thing right now, so give your feedback, everybody. There's a playtest coming up.
So I just want to double check and confirm here because no pay to win, I've seen a lot of loopholes that these companies will try to.
A lot of loopholes.
They'll try and say there's no pay to win, but in reality, there's some kind of currency that you can buy that eventually leads to pay to win. So you're confirming that there is no pay to win straight up, and the only monetization is pretty much what you've explained before?
네, 없습니다. 코스튬이나 이모션 같은
socially oriented content,
소셜에 관련된
costumes, emotes,
내용이나
cosmetic
치장성
goods.
상품 외에는 어떠한 밸런스에 영향을 주는 DM
We are not planning on selling items that will disrupt the balance of the game. This can mean a lot of things. There are games in the past that have said that they will not sell anything on the shop that will directly influence player power and thus no pay to win. But in reality, there's other things that are sold that you feel obligated to buy, be it resources or, like they do mention, currency. Kanon specifically did ask about currency here, and they don't talk about currency, but they say they're not planning on selling items that will disrupt the balance of the game. This could just mean directly selling equipment to them. This may not necessarily mean that. It could be selling enhancement materials or something that, increases or decreases chances of enhancing, things like that. There's a lot of different things that can be done with a shop that might make it feel this way. One of the loopholes to this, and that some people will have talked about, I know some people have commented on Twitter already talking about like an energy system or a labor system. Is there going to be restrictions on how much you can gather or farm per day? What's the trading system going to be like? If there are restrictions on how much you can do today. Like, let's say there is an energy system, theoretically, like in ArcAge, labor. If there's something like labor, where you can only do X amount of stuff per day, but you can still trade things to one another, well then, if the game has a box price, which people have talked about this game having a box price, then people will make an argument that it's pay to win because you have to pay for multiple accounts in order to play on another account to feed your main account more materials so that you can enhance more. Because that was a thing that has gone on in some other games. Not only did that happen with ArcAge Unchained, with alting, but also even in New World, where they had restrictions at release, if people remember, on how many keys that you could craft per day to access the dungeons that were restricted behind these tuning orbs. And so people had multiple accounts. Now, this isn't the majority, but like these are things that people do. They had multiple accounts in order to have more characters that could craft these orbs in order to make more tuning keys to do more dungeon runs. And so these are things people will do and become arguments that the audiences make. And so it's just something to be aware of regarding that.
고려하지 않고 있습니다.
There's going to be a lot of people who will be insanely happy hearing this, but there's also going to be a lot of people that are just not going to believe what you're saying until they see it. Mainly because there have been many companies that have said there was going to be no pay to win, but ended up adding it later. What do you say to those who don't believe?
다시 한번 말씀드리지만 크로노 오디세이에는 pay to win 요소는 절대 없을 것입니다.
Never have pay to win elements.
밸런스에 영향을 미치는 그 어떤 상품도 없을
Again,
것입니다.
there will be no items that will affect gameplay balance of the game, which we're just going to have to wait and see and hope that comes to be the case. This is one of those things where it really is just a wait and see, because we just do not know at this time. These types of things have a way of working their ways into the game in some way, but it's also one of those things where everybody has a different view on what is considered pay to win. There are people who, if the game has a battle pass that has exclusive goods in it, they still don't consider that pay to win, especially if there's at least a way to earn the battle pass through in-game means or some other form of selling currency to get it. But others that think it is pay to win because it is something that you have to pay for, whereas others only consider pay to win if the game is selling stuff that is exclusive to the shop, cannot be acquired through in-game means, and you can only get it by buying it, that type of stuff. And so the term pay to win has become very convoluted over the years, and everybody has their own different definition on it. I'm a little hopeful just because it does seem like Chrono Odyssey themselves have taken a lot of Western inspirations, and they are a new studio in the space, and they want to have a good introduction into the West. Many people do have concerns since Kakao's name is associated to it. They are the publisher, though. They are not the developer. They cannot monetize anything that isn't designed to be monetized. So if Kakao has things that are monetized for the game that are quote-unquote pay to win, then you could say that it was because it was developed that way in which it was able to be presented as a pay-to-win element versus, Kakao are not the developers. If Chrono really doesn't want anything pay to win, they won't design any systems or elements that would allow for things to be sold in that way. And so that's going to be a little bit of what we have to wait and see in terms of how things are designed. People even go as far as saying things like inventory expansion is pay to win. Weight increases, if that's a thing, is pay to win. That was an argument with BDO for a long time, because having more inventory space and having more equipment weight, or having more weight, allowed you to farm longer, which allowed you in turn to make more money per hour, which influenced directly your ability to progress. And so that gets argued as pay to win even. And so, there's just all sorts of things that can be coming down to how people argue pay to win. That hasn't been the case in BDO for a long time now, but that's just an example of how people create scenarios in which pay to win is talked about. But I'm hopeful, just because it does seem like they're taking a lot of stuff from New World. People have talked about how they're going to have a box price. The only thing they're talking about now is a battle pass and costumes and stuff like that. So those are going to be important things to see how that monetization actually plays out. The game does have a lot of New World-esque elements with the crafting and the gathering, and even how the weapon system works. But it does still seem to have a little bit of that Korean MMO flair to everything else in the game. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm, cautiously optimistic. I'm excited for the playtest to see what the game offers, and I hope everybody else is as well. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Otherwise, take care, have a good one, and you can catch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/ZZav.